Good afternoon, this is Emmanuel, and this is my presentation on innovations in biology, climate change. So our professor is Professor Patricia Martner Kiwis, and I will be talking about the climate change. So moving on to So again, my aim in this presentation is to look at the greenhouse effect, biological effects, and technological solutions that are there in order to deal with climate change. So climate change is one of the most urgent problems of humankind and is mostly caused by human activities, which introduce greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Scientists have come to an overwhelming agreement that human activities are heating the climate system on Earth is in an unprecedented manner. I will explain how greenhouse gases can be trapped, their effect on the ecosystem of the greenhouse gases, and the technological solutions that can be made available. The knowledge I'm basing my part on is a compilation of scientific research that has been carefully achieved over decades by federal agencies, including NOAA, NASA, and the EPA. In 2005, Lindsay describes the Intergovernmental Panel is a compilation of works of thousands of scientists in the world and provides extensive considerations for policymakers. Mauna Loa Observatory has been measuring carbon dioxide since the late 1950s in order to provide scientists with the round-the-clock observation of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The strategies of peer review will ensure my presentation is organized on the basis of peer-reviewed evidence that is sound rather than opinions and half of the story. Greenhouse effect is a natural phenomenon that has made the Earth habitable in a span of billions of years. Because of this, it allows it to maintain the right temperatures. Greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor capture infrared radiation at the surface of the Earth and reflect heat to the surface. The role of carbon dioxide is especially crucial due to the fact that it is the most important long-term greenhouse gas which stays in the atmosphere for several hundreds of years. In the absence of this natural greenhouse effect, the average temperature of the Earth would be 60 degrees Fahrenheit colder, and without this natural greenhouse, the Earth would be frozen and uninhabitable. The modern state of the atmosphere is an expression of the radical influence of human activity on the carbon cycle on the Earth in a period of 2.5 centuries of illustration. According to Lindsay in 2005 and 2004, carbon dioxide levels were 422.7 parts per million. This rate change is between 100 and 200 times greater than any natural changes that might have taken place in the geological record. In 2024 alone, fossil fuels used by humans emitted about 37.4 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere each year. Climate change is dramatically transforming the distribution, behavior, and survival of species in both terrestrial and marine ecosystems. With increasing effects, in 2022, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency recorded that land fauna migrates northwards at a rate of 3.8 miles annually. The temperature of the ocean is rising and the marine life is moving downstream an average of 16 or more miles a decade. When species move to new areas, it causes problems with timing, destroys their homes, makes them more at risk, and disrupts how animals and plants depend on each other throughout the ecosystem. Climate change has far-reaching effects and it directly affects the well-being of humans, food security, and the community in any given region of the world. According to NASA science, in 2024, vectors that transmit diseases like mosquitoes, ticks, are spreading into novel geographic locations around the globe. The number of casualties and deaths caused by extreme weather and cases of wondrously high temperatures is climbing at an unbelievable rate, as even events of setting records appear regular. All these affect the agricultural systems, fisheries, and subject villages of the indigenous population to the cancellation of traditional methods of doing things which have sustained the cultures of generations. To address this issue of the climate change, there is a need to adapt techniques and technology that work towards removing carbon emissions, filtering carbon in the air, and protecting natural ecosystem as soon as development is realized. NASA science in 2024 points out that solar expenses have been reduced by 99% in comparison with 2010 and wind expenses by 69%. Clean energy transition is expected to generate 14 million new jobs by the year 2030, providing employment opportunities as well as economic incentives and advantages to the environment. Direct air capture, conservation of forests, and ecosystem restoration are useful to our future because of the simultaneous benefits of carbon capture and biodiversity protection. Economic aspects include the massive cost of doing nothing as well as the massive investment potential of changing to substantial systems. In 2022, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency observed that the ecosystem services are worth $125 trillion. Dollars. Hundreds of millions are lost by the shellfish industry as the destruction of coral reefs drains the income of tourism and possesses a real challenge. The cost of dealing with climate change is $4.5 trillion every year until 2030, and this might result in 4.2 trillion of savings. Although policies and technological interventions are necessary to execute systematic changes, I would like to highlight that both individual and community interventions are very important. In 2022, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency underlined that the spread of invasive species can be prevented, habitat conservation is supported, and substantial management practices will lead to a reduction of emissions. Engaging in regular citizen science monitoring programs can help researchers with data and interest, and participation in environmental matters among the general public. Advocacy and policy and reporting environmental risk to governments are ways of supporting evidence-based climate policies and preserving ecosystems and promoting changes that require at the system level. So thank you to everybody that made it this far into my presentation. I would like to conclude that global warming is the unprecedented achievement of the world that must be involved in intersectoral efforts to rescue Earth. Such a crisis can only be served by integrating emissions controlled measures and carbon removal technologies and natural climate solutions that can be integrated. I appreciate all of your time and attention today. Thank you, and anything that you may have questions, please leave those in the comments in the discussion post. Thank you.